Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Exchange Podcast. My name is JaVaughn Iversen. Tom couldn't be here with us today. He's actually in class right now, but I am joined by two special guests. We've got a guest who has been here before, Michael Murphy. Go ahead and say hi, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
And we've got my younger brother, the youngest of all the brothers, Trevian Mclendon. He's coming in from Florida. He's been working. Trey, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
And that is his voice, guys, so we apologize for that.
Yeah.
But welcome back to the Exchange Podcast. I'm super excited because I get to have another family member on within the last 6 months, so that's pretty awesome. And then Michael being here, he's always welcome to be here with us. So, you know, we're just gonna jump right into it. We have 3 different age groups at this table right now. All right, Michael being the oldest, Trevian being the youngest. So, Michael, how old are you?
37.
Okay, 37. And then I'm 28, so there's a good 9 to 10 year gap.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trevian, how old are you?
I'm 20.
He's 20.
He's a baby.
He's a baby. So,
Everybody says.
yeah. So, I mean, it comes down to you're almost 20 years older than him. I'm right in the middle. And 2 of the 3 of us are married. Both of us who are married either have a kid on the way or have kids. And then, you know, no surprise here, but Trevian, you're the one who's not married. You don't have kids.
No.
What are you doing with your life? I mean, Grandma and Grandpa, once they were 20, they were popping out kids left and right.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to put like a $30,000 down payment on a house now. So.
That's true. That's very true. No, that's
kidding.
true. Today, there's a lot of people going through the motions of getting into a relationship. Michael, when did you get married?
In 2010.
2010. I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
I got married in 2020. Made it easy on myself. So, been married for 3 years because it's 2023. So, about 10 years after you, I got married. And then let's say in some strange reason, you get married 10 years later.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how long.
Things are gonna be insanely different, right?
Yeah.
Things are gonna be insanely different.
Yeah.
I mean, with Tinder being what it is now, there's Tinder, Bumble. What else is there?
I have no
Instagram.
idea.
Instagram is a dating site now.
Well, that's just where to go. That's just where to go.
Is it?
I'm too old for all that.
Okay. And I have to say, I'm clueless because I was never, when I was in college, I wasn't good with the dating scene in terms of getting on an app and like looking for somebody. I was the old school. Hi, how's it going? You look good today.
Yeah.
As dorky as that sounds, you know, how do you approach a young lady that you're interested in, Trey? Remember,
I
Mom will be
don't.
listening to this, so.
I usually don't at all. But
See this?
I'm saying I just go and Instagram, direct message.
Right.
The
Okay.
DMs, yeah.
I guess that's one of the big changes from my generation to, you know, the current generation that's dating age, was we didn't have all of those. I mean, I mean, I used to go out and meet people either at school or at the places I frequented. We didn't have, in fact, I didn't have a cool, what I considered a cool cell phone until I was like 19 years old.
Sure. And by cool, you mean like.
It was a flip phone, and I was really excited because it had a camera.
There you go.
We've
Camera.
technology has come a long way, and honestly, I think it's kind of convoluted the dating scene.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at an image, you're reading the description they gave you, not what you're experiencing firsthand. It's not, hey, I'm interacting with this person, I'm meeting them, I get to see, because people are fake.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that you see online is not reality.
Mm-mm.
And so I really feel for people who are dating age now. I mean, I imagine it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I would assume when we're talking about the dating age, when we talk about it, when me and Michael talk about it, I think we should clarify, we dated to get married. I mean, how many people, and let's be fair, I'm not saying you're not wanting to get married eventually, but how many people in their 20s to 22, 23, 25 How many of them are looking to get married? I mean, is it really dating anymore? I mean,
No, it's not really like dating where like people are trying to commit to each other. I feel like a lot of people are just like feeling each other out.
yeah,
And like they don't make it like serious. Like I think it's a lot less serious even when people do even get into like a serious relationship. Like it's way easier for people to like decommit.
yeah,
Like get out of the relationship. It's like I feel like it's way easier now than it was like back in the day.
sure.
Like
But
people do a lot more.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a societal trend to not committing
Mm-hmm.
and to pushing it out and pushing it, or just never getting married. I mean, there's a lot of people now that are just, they're not going to. There's been a fundamental shift in that
Sure.
that respect.
What do you think is encouraging that? You know, from your point of view of where you're at in your age, and then Trey, I'll ask the same question in a minute. But what do you think encourages the?
I think the number one thing is the more the country drifts away from the church, and we now have a generation of 15 to 25-year-olds where a majority no longer profess faith,
Sure.
which is the first time that's happened in our country's history. I think that is where it starts to trend, because a lot of the fundamental ideas about how a family should operate, marriage, etc., come from a Christian background. And as we drift away from, as a society, as they drift away from that, then that's a byproduct.
Yeah. I think a discouragement or an encouragement to not stay committed is the rampant amount of divorce that started off as a spark in the 90s, started turning into your typical campfire, and then now is a raging wildfire of just divorce here and there. I mean, we're not just talking about 50% in the country. I think that's gone up. The scary part is that it's 50% in the church now, where people who get married in the church have a 50% chance of divorcing. And Trey and I lived through a divorce, and I know for me, it actually did the opposite. It encouraged me to want to stay together with whoever I married, because I always wanted to get married. But Trey, what do you think? You know, same question to Michael. What do you think is encouraging to not stay committed?
I think definitely because of the church thing, like people are trying to like kind of getting away from like God and everything. But I think a lot of it has to do with like social media and like I know for me and like my friends, like we're always like we can like look at like different girls, like different people on social media and think like, oh, they would be like nice to be with. And then like if you're with a person, you can still be on that social media app. You can be looking around and stuff. And then you'll see like these other choices. I'll put that in air quotes
right
for you. But it's really like easy to just look at other stuff nowadays and think, oh, that's probably better than what my situation is now. But I think really it's not that at all. Like really like where like the good stuff is when you do like commit to somebody. And like I think the best times are like when like people like stick it out with you. Like
Well, that's how you grow.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly
Jumping around.
you don't have a chance to really develop a deep relationship with somebody. When you're with somebody, I mean, my wife and I have been married over 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a deep trust. Like I know that, like we've developed, I know her, she knows me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't form those kinds of bonds when you're constantly,
Yeah.
you know, finding a new partner. You can't develop that level of intimacy that you otherwise would.
I would say that even in the 3 years that my wife and I have been married, we've come to know each other. This is the longest relationship I've ever been in. And it started in 2018 when we started dating, got married in 2020, and now we're here, about to have our first kid. So I can't get to know somebody just by reading their description. It's great, but I might as well be reading an obituary, right? What's the difference between reading someone's description on Bumble or Tinder than reading their obituary? You know, you're going to hear and read the good things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what's the picture they put in the obituary? The best looking picture of you, even if you're in your 90s.
When you were in high school.
Right.
You
They
know.
put a nice picture in there of you. And you think to yourself, wow, that's a handsome young man. Well, how old was he when he died? 92. Okay, so where's the picture of him when he died?
Yeah.
You know, just like when you're looking on Tinder. I mean, that's why catfishing became a thing. That's
Yeah.
a big thing that happens, and it's a
Catfishing.
trust issue that comes to
Definitely.
happen. You'll look at somebody on the app. and you're like, wow, they look like a 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out there's a bunch of makeup and filters, and I'm not talking about just women. I think that's another thing that kind of hurts. Let me ask both of you, have you guys heard of Andrew Tate?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not blaming him for all of this. This is just, in general, it was a surge of craziness that happened last year. But when you have people like Andrew Tate kind of create a realm of this red-pilled ideology that just kind of takes a dump on one side of the playing field in terms of dating, does that kind of, and Trey, this probably made me aim towards you because me and Michael don't worry about dating. Does that encourage you or discourage you or kind of influence you in the way that you play this game called the dating game?
There are some things that we can take away from Andrew Tate, like good and bad, I think.
Sure.
I think Andrew Tate really touches on like men's like confidence and like where they should find their confidence in, and like I feel like there has been like a long time like where guys kind of been like pushed to the side, where it's like social media like pushing like women's rights and stuff like that, which is all like I'm all for that too. But like where men are like the leaders and stuff like that, and people kind of think that's like, oh, that's bad. That can be bad at sometimes, but like from where I grew up, from like where I'm from, I think like, yeah, the men should be the leaders of like the family, the societies that we are into. And like a lot of people like don't think so. And
a lot of the internet.
Yeah. And when it comes to like dating and stuff, you just got to find the right people that think like the same as you, and or at least kind of the same. I don't know.
Well, no, I think you nailed a point there. Mm-hmm. You have to find someone who shares the same core values as you. Because if you're going to develop a relationship with them and you don't agree even on the most fundamental issues, it's not going to work out. It'll only get you so far. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's improbable.
Yeah, it's
the thing is, if you are very devout and you're in the church and your spouse or significant other, whoever you're dating, is not, there's a high degree of likelihood that you're not going to see eye to eye on many major topics. Yeah. It'll be a source of contention, which I'm not saying that people can't kind of meet in the middle, but when you're diametrically opposed, it becomes increasingly difficult to find a middle ground, and eventually it will.
No, that's a good point. Crumble. The ideas that me and my wife share that will not start an argument are movie choices, what to eat. We disagree on a lot. Like we just, she likes Whataburger. We like In-N-Out. Me and my brothers will always, I like In-N-Out. She likes Whataburger. She likes Honda. I like Volkswagen. Those dumb things that at the end of the day, you could just look at it and go, okay, look, let's just get this. It's whatever. But the things that usually people aren't going to agree on is, abortion. Abortion. You have, it's really hard to be with somebody when you want kids and a family, and they're like, well, I'm not saying that it always happens like this, but they're like, I don't want to have kids. Well, what happens if we get pregnant? Well, we can always get an abortion. No, we can't. For me personally, if that's something my wife would say, I'd be like, no, we can't. Sarah's not saying that, obviously, but those types of topics, I think, when we talk about these things where we're just focusing on one side of the aisle, where do we see men failing nowadays that just, all three of us could talk about this because, the Bible says that older men teach the younger men, so we can all talk about this. We've all seen it. I think, Trey and I were talking about some friends he had in the past. Just flat out tell them, and it's like, oh, I want to date this girl, but I'll be gone for a while. And they said what they say.
Yeah, they're just like, cheat on her.
And
I think that's where men are failing, is the friendships we find.
You are who you surround yourself with. So the old adage, guilty by association, to a large extent is true.
True.
Because while you may be able to pass off some positive traits to people like that, by and large, they will slowly wear on you.
Yeah.
I think going back to Proverbs 27:17, where iron sharpens iron, if you're a block of wood and I'm a piece of iron, the wood's not going to sharpen the iron. It's going to eventually dull it. It's really important to surround yourself with people who make good life decisions.
Yep.
And encourage you to make good decisions. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yep.
And it's very difficult to be put in a situation where there's social pressure and not eventually cave. And, you know, if you just avoid those situations, you'll find yourself getting in a lot less trouble or having a lot less issues in life.
Yep. And if they're not, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes it's really difficult. But
it's very difficult,
sometimes you got to cut those people out.
I was in college 6 years ago. Wow. I was in college 6 years ago, and
Dang.
I was in the same boat as Trey was at one point, but on the other foot, somebody was asking me what they should do because their girlfriend's going on a trip, and I wasn't that good friend. I remember I was telling them, like, bro, she's going to Mexico with all the girls? That's wild. You need to take a proactive stance and get something to hold you over for this week, this upcoming spring break. And it wasn't. That's not a good friend. I wasn't the good friend. That was foolish of me. And I think that's where men falter, is that not only surrounding yourself with good people, but holding them to the same standard you hold yourself to. That's usually how I could tell if my friends are going to be my friends. If I'm talking with my buddy Zach, and he goes to church here with us at Living Water Church. So not Living Water. Good Lord, I keep saying that. It's Convergent City Church. We just had a name change.
You did?
We did. Here at Convergent City Church, I have my buddy Zach, and I remember telling him something, and he completely agreed with me without me even like prefacing anything or giving him context. And I thought to myself, wow, I can hold him to the same standard as me. That's important.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, iron sharpens iron. That means you have to have like-minded friends around you.
Well, and how do they hold you accountable if they're not even operating at the same standard?
Exactly.
You have to find people that are operating on this, or sometimes are doing better than you.
Yes.
Because it gives you something to strive for, or you can go to them for advice.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody who's failing at everything they do and they're making poor life decisions, I mean, you can't really turn to them and go, hey, I need advice on this, or what do you think? Because they're not there.
What do you think Paul's talking about in Corinthians when he says, older men teach the younger men and older women teach the younger women? That Bible verse is for you to, to look at and sharpen yourself with iron that has been refined over and over. I talk to my dad so much about things, just whatever. We had him on the podcast. Those of you who are listening, you heard his story. He's the best piece of iron I can sharpen myself off of. A, he's my dad. B, he's been around the block. And C, he's saved. That's the most important part, is that all three of us at this table are believers. The cold part about the reality of life is that not everybody in your life is going to be a believer. And the hardest part is not allowing them to try to sharpen themselves off of you or be the wood that's going to dull you, like Michael was saying. What is it that you think we could do as a church to encourage those values? Because monogamy is so boring to the world. But it's crazy because if I had to deal with, let's say, Sarah cloned herself one time and there was two of her now, I'd be done. I'd be done. I'm not dealing with multiple women. I'm not dealing with multiple people. All right, I could deal with one, kind of, and that's all with love. But the reality is, you've got multiple kids. You got to deal with multiple people. Only one of them's your wife, but the idea of dealing with multiple people in a loving relationship like your wife, it's nuts.
So I think the relationship has to have some kind of issue if that's where you're turning. You're turning to someone outside of your relationship to fulfill something that you're not getting there. But to me, even if both parties say that they're open to that idea, I don't know how that could not fundamentally affect your trust.
Yep.
And I think that ultimately it will lead to trust issues.
Mm-hmm.
Once you open, it's like opening Pandora's box. Once it's open, trying to close it back up is
No,
a no-go.
for sure.
But I honestly think one of the biggest issues is the passivity of men. We've become passive.
Yeah, as a whole.
Well, and it all goes back to the garden. So I'll pose a question to you. Where was Adam when Eve partook of the fruit that God told them not to take?
He was somewhere else, right?
No.
No, he was right there.
Oh, he's right there.
He was right
So
there.
it says that when she partook of the fruit and saw that it was good, she turned to him who was with her. He was sitting there the whole time. He could have been like, nope, we're not doing this. Eve, put it back. We were told not to, but he let it happen.
Yeah.
There's quite a few scriptures in the Bible where it talks about the man not stepping up.
Yep.
I've made it my goal this year to read the Bible all the way through, and I'm about 80% of the way this year.
Oh, nice.
However, I'll scroll through here and see if I can find it. I highlight like crazy.
Oh yeah, no,
But
that's
there
good.
was a quote that I found the other day that was dealing with the same issue where the men were passive and then they allowed all of this stuff to occur when they could have put their foot down, and they didn't. And as a result, they were punished for it. And I think that's one of the problems is society's trying to move us to be passive. Don't be masculine. There's nothing wrong with masculinity. There's nothing wrong with being a man.
Well, who do they call when someone's being overtly masculine?
Yeah, toxic masculinity.
Another toxic masculine person. They call a police officer. Because at the end of the day, if I have to throw somebody on the ground, I'm going to do it. And guess what? People are going to pat me on the back and say, hey, thanks for doing your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is a time where things like that are necessary.
Yep.
But the quote is from Jeremiah. It's Jeremiah 44:19. And so with a little backstory, because it's important to know the context. But the context of this is God's angry with the Israelites. Big surprise, because typically they fall off the bandwagon.
They messed up a lot.
But they're worshiping goddesses and idols. So Jeremiah goes to the women. They say, and the women said, when we made offerings to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drink offerings to her, was it without our husband's approval that we made cakes for her bearing her image and poured out drink offerings to her? I mean, so the men knew that it was happening, but they didn't step in. And as a result, everyone got punished for it. But there's so many instances of that throughout the Bible. And I think that's what society's trying to push us away from.
Yeah.
Don't take that role. Don't be the leader.
Yeah.
Just accept.
Feel bad that you took that spot. Feel bad that you're stepping in front of your wife and telling her no. Feel bad that you're making a decision for your kids, even though they want this, but you know what's best for them. Feel bad for that. Second guess yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes to play into how men perceive themselves, and they start to falter. And the more they buy into that ideology, the more they will find themselves faltering, because it's programmed into you. That's how you were made.
Yeah.
By and large, who's the protector of the home?
Oh, the man. The men, I should say, because even when your son becomes a teenager, you almost default expect him to help you out if something happens in the house.
We were all given strengths and weaknesses. Physically, men are stronger than women. There's no doubt.
You can't.
It's the way we were designed. But women are much better at communicating.
Oh,
they're much better at socializing.
By
They're
far,
much
by and
better
large.
and so if we stay kind of in the lanes that were designed for us, you'll find that the system runs much more efficiently.
Yeah.
There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing wrong with being a man.
No.
There's nothing wrong with being a woman, but too much of trying to push men away from being masculine. when you call 911 because there's someone stabbing people, do you want somebody to show up that's,
trying to communicate with them?
yeah.
Well,
excuse
for
me,
example,
would you please put that down. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well,
No,
example is the dude in New York. Have you guys seen that video? There was like a anti-police activist out with his girlfriend, and the anti-police activist thing, in the context of all this, matters because he was approached by a young man of darker complexion in New York at night, and he was freaking out, verbally yelling and whatnot. And instead of doing the smart thing, it's not racist, doing the smart thing and crossing the street and not being near this guy, they tried to walk through his area. He looked at them, yelled at the young man, and said, "What are you looking at?" and then stabbed him to death. Whoa. While his girlfriend just stood there. So what would have been better if you would have just let this man continue to go on his rant and kill somebody else, or just walking down the street and be like, "Hey, 911, there's a guy freaking the heck out. He's got a knife and it's nighttime. He might be on something. You might need to come down here, put him in handcuffs, and maybe not take him to jail, but at least send him to a hospital, because that's not normal behavior."
Yeah, well, no rational person would be out there acting the way that person
punching cars, kicking stuff, and a simple phone call. I mean, when we were working for Mom, and we get calls about people acting weird, our first thought wasn't, "Oh, let's just go arrest him." It was,
well, you have to assess the situation and figure out what's going on. Are they having a mental break? Are they intoxicated? I mean, there's no way of knowing without assessing it once you get there.
Ready for anything, though.
Exactly. The thing is, you never, especially in a profession such as policing, you never know when that next person's going to try to kill you. So that has to be in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
But you don't have to necessarily let it affect the way that you approach the person. I mean, that has to be back there, because you have to be ready, because things can change in a split second.
100%.
But you also get a lot of calls for service where they give a description of a situation and you get there and you're like, this is absolutely not what I was expecting. It's one of those expect the unexpected. You got to show up and
you were in Jacksonville, Florida.
I was.
What was the scene there? Like, how was it?
Jacksonville, it's really big. There's a lot of not very nice areas, but there's a lot of nice areas too. It's a lot of water there too.
Were you cautious? Were you cautious around?
Yeah,
because you were selling security systems.
I was selling alarms in Jacksonville, and it was pretty scary in some parts of the city, just because it was all like low income areas. They seemed to put everybody all in one spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good though. I never really had any trouble. With anybody. I did like get into some like verbal like disagreements and stuff like that, but it was nothing like where people were like threatening me or anything like that.
Don't worry, I know Mom's gonna listen to this, but you could just tell us what happened. So.
Oh no, it wasn't really. No, there's nothing really anything that happened.
The reason I say that is that even with just somebody who's selling stuff, just walking around, and you're 6 foot, what, 6 foot?
Like 6'1".
6'1", male, 6'1", black, walking around, still cautious, because the reality is that you still need to be cautious.
Yeah.
But it's okay to have that toxic masculinity trait in the back of your head, ready to go if need be.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you are your own first responder.
You have to.
The police are only a phone call away, but then you have to account for when you're in a fight for your life. 30 seconds is an eternity.
Oh my gosh, it is. Just do jujitsu, roll around for about 20 seconds.
With somebody who knows what they're doing.
And you're winded.
You're tired.
Oh, you're so tired. Yeah. It's game over. The reason I bring that up is just we have, we started out with dating. We talked about masculinity. I want it to be known that here at the Exchange Podcast, it's not toxic masculinity. It's just masculinity. My dad gets up out of bed to make sure my mom's okay if something's happening in the house. Is that because my dad's toxic? No, it's because he loves his wife. If my sister's having a problem and something's happening in the house. My dad gets up and goes take care of her. When me and my brothers were all younger, my dad was ready to, at the moment's notice, to take care of business, however it was. That wasn't toxic whatsoever. I've seen my dad yell at people. I've seen my dad tell people if they don't back up, they were going to get hurt. I've seen all those things. All right. Somebody tried to harm my mom while my brothers were home, and my dad just happenstance, while my parents were divorced, my dad just happenstance to come around the corner and beat the man, and the police let my dad go because my dad was doing his job. Even though he was divorced, those were his kids, and he still considered my mom his wife. Boy, that was a wonderful time. But you got these moments where toxic masculinity is just masculinity. It's what God has made us to be. And I would say stop being passive, but you don't need to be a jerk. Yeah. Okay? Stop being walked all over. Be a little more forceful, but not intrusive.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you can stand your ground without...
Well, and the way you carry yourself, people will know. So you don't even have to open your mouth a lot of times. It's like, for instance, when I was in FTO and I was training new officers, it's your scene. You have to be in control.
Oh, 100%.
And you don't have to do that by screaming and yelling, but you have to, if you stand up straight and you look confident, people will know. Okay, well, many times on FTO, when they would transition to the point where the recruits or the new officers are primary on calls and the FTO is just shadowing, I can't tell you how many times people would turn and want to talk to me because they could tell
you were in charge.
I was confident and I knew what was happening. Even if nobody said a word, people will sense it.
Yeah.
It's all about how you carry yourself.
It
and
is,
it doesn't have to be abrasive.
Yeah.
It's just a simple matter of confidence. And, if we're talking about the issue of crime and being victimized, criminals are far more likely to prey on someone who they think is an easy victim.
They did that study from prisoners asking them, they would show them a picture and they'd say, in this picture, who would you rob and who would you actually stay away from? Mm-hmm. And there was the dude coming out of the gym. Now, obviously, he's coming out of the gym. That's number one. But they said, even coming out of the gym, his shoes are tied, his beard is kept, his hair is kept, and he's on alert. So that's a no-go. The other person that they wouldn't mess with was somebody in a suit who looked like he was walking with a purpose somewhere, holding himself to a high regard. Again, clean-shaven, nice hair, nice suit. You could try to rob him, but again, you don't know what he's capable of because he's very much holding himself with enough confidence to know he's the man. Mm-hmm. And then they pointed at, some dude who's got his shirt untucked. He kind of looks like a bum. Hair's really long, whatever. Again, you shouldn't mess with anybody. But they said, that guy right there, yeah, I'd probably mess with him.
Well, so that's one of the things I was so keen on is keeping your uniform presentable.
Clean, yep.
Making sure that it fits. If you need to get it tailored, get it tailored. You don't want to go looking sloppy. If you get somebody who's really sharp looking and then you get the guy who comes strolling in, his pants are several sizes too large. He's got his belt cinched up. It's all bunched up. His shirt's overflowing because it's too large. If you take those two, who do you think's going to be more serious or,
9 times out of 10.
Exactly.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the guy who's well dressed, and I think that's the problem. Is that you've heard of profiling, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the illegal one is racial profiling. We're not doing that. You can look at somebody and you can just tell. Oh.
So the problem is, just like judgment. People get that judgment's a terrible word. Judgment can go in your favor. Mm-hmm. Profiling is a natural.
Everybody does
instinct that human beings are endowed with. That is something that you do. You look at people and you assess them.
It's like instinct, right?
It's absolutely
100%.
It's absolutely instinct. Now, the problem is if you look at every person of a particular ethnic group and you go, oh, well, they're all criminals.
They're all the same.
Well, but therein lies the problem. But
why do they commit that much crime? I don't get it.
But there's nothing wrong with profiling. That's how you remain safe. And alive. Yeah. Now, when you do it for the wrong reasons, then it becomes an issue.
Right.
But, if you look at the guy and or someone's approaching you and he's got his hands in his hoodie and he's got his his brow furrowed, and he's got his head down, and he's staring at you, and he's coming at you, and he's got his hand tucked in like he's holding a weapon, I'm probably going to assess that situation and go, well, this might go sideways.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, somebody is walking by and they make eye contact with
they
you.
Smile.
They
say,
like, okay, that's profiling. I'm going to look for the threat.
Now, never let your guard down.
Yeah, honestly, when I first started my job, the alarm sales, like a lot of sales was like profiling, like where we're looking at the person, seeing like how they would like want me to talk to them and stuff like that too. Yeah, so it was a lot of like kind of being a chameleon. That's what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it makes you more effective.
It builds that trust.
In the policing profession, exactly. You build a rapport with someone.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they're far more likely to comply if you can find some issue on which you can relate.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, you like sports? Like, okay, you're wearing a Raiders pullover.
Yeah.
Like, dude, so who's your favorite Raiders player? Or what decade were they the best?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Raiders, but I can get you going, and your comfort level will rise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go-to was 9 times out of 10 people were a Hogs fan here. So it was easy to just...
Arkansas.
Yeah, out here in Arkansas, somebody's a Hogs fan. So if you're on an accident and you're trying to calm somebody down, you look at their license plate, it's probably got like a Hogs decal or something. So, I mean, when you build that rapport with somebody... But see, this actually, funny enough, this goes back to the dating part, okay? Yeah. Because when you find somebody on Tinder and you just meet them for one night and then that's it, well, if you meet them another night, you might find out that they like the Titanic. Oh, cool, I like Leonardo DiCaprio. You talk about those things. You find out interest between one another. Because rapport doesn't just work in sales or police work. I had to find out that my wife loves movies. Just loves movies all over the place. Well, the only movies I like are Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And the movies she doesn't like are Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. But we found out that we both, I can compromise. I'll watch the movies you like, you watch the movies I like, and then we'll be fine. And we built on that. She never played sports. I played sports. So us having a boy, I was like, oh, cool, I hope he plays baseball or something. And she's like, oh, I'm going to have to figure out how to get into that. But, I'm building a rapport in my own marriage. And that's what a long-term relationship is. Mm-hmm. I think here's the thing. We're going to end it with this. We come and we have these conversations. And the main reason isn't just to hear ourselves talk. I don't even have headphones on, so I can't even hear myself talk. But they can, so they're blessed with that. But I like these conversations. It's been a wonderful exchange. I love having Michael as a guest, and Trey is confirming that I need to have all of my brothers on at least one time together because it'd be a hoot. But
that'd be fun.
Oh, it'd be wild. But these conversations, I hope whoever's listening to this, I hope you take away that from somebody who's 37, 28, 20, we all had this conversation where we all come from different backgrounds, different areas of life in our lives, that it was constructive. I don't know. I learned something from you about relationships. I'm learning more about my brother. I'm learning more about myself. And my encouragement is that if you're going to listen to these podcasts, I really hope you listen and you find something that if you could take away from it, leave a comment and tell us, what you got from it. Because I want to be able to continue to have those conversations with people here, but also people in the comments. So, Trey, why don't you tell us what you'll be doing for the next few months and what you're going to be up to? Just give yourself a shout out and whatnot.
I'm just going to shout out Vivint, any young guys listen to the podcast. If you guys want to, pay off your student debt, you can do it over a summer if you want to do that, or make a lot more money too. Just indoor sales. Let him know, JaVaughn, and then you'll let me know.
Yeah, for sure. We're not sponsored by them, by the way. We can't say that we're sponsored by them, but he is his own person who makes money on his own time.
I can get you on my team. But I'm just going to go back home for October, and then we're going back to work in November in Texas. I'm going to Dallas or Houston. I'm not too sure. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Should be working again.
That's right.
Oh, what? And also, I'm going to Mexico, too.
Oh, so he'll be in Mexico. So
Yeah.
if anybody's out in Mexico and would like to make some extra cash, apparently.
No, not there. Not there.
So, Michael, you've been a longtime guest. I think that's the third time this year.
Yes, sir.
I believe so. So, Michael, you got anything coming up? Anything you want to shout out?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I'm just.
Are you going to the golfing tournament for Chief? I didn't know if that was something you heard about.
First of all, I've never played golf in my life.
Fair. That's fair.
Second of all, with my current medical conditions,
Sure.
that golfing is just probably not a. I'll find another way to support them, but golf probably won't be my way to do it.
I gotcha. Well, the Exchange Podcast does want to shout out Chief Corey Pickard. He is going through quite a few things. I'm not going to go into details on it here, but he's got a medical situation going on that the police department and some people from the city of Maumelle are supporting him with a golf tournament in the city of Maumelle. I'll give you more details on that dates-wise, but we'll be praying for him as we pray for Michael and we pray for our congregation. And we just thank you guys for listening. We thank you for subscribing, and we hope you guys have a great weekend.